Well, Odie Hawkins,
Hey.
I'd like to invite you to another moment in time with Odie and Zola, or as our friends call us, Oz, O-Z, and I think I'll join you there on our set.
Good to see you. Good to see you. I've been waiting for hours. I was wondering where you were. I thought maybe you left me.
That's what husbands do, but no, I wouldn't leave you.
Well, you got a point.
Right, indeed.
Just gonna start off like this.
Yes, how are you doing today?
Well.
Okay, this is good. This is good.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to really go back to the beginning. Not from the day of your birth, but...
I remember it well.
You remember it well.
My mother was there.
I'm glad she was there.
Waiting impatiently. Hurry, I got things to do.
Well, I myself came on early on the scene, so...
Okay.
Yes, I was a very patient...
All right, you were a preemie, right?
Yeah, so I was a very patient child.
I like the way you put that. You arrived early.
Yes. All right. Well... What I'd like to talk about is your high school days in writing.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
That's a good place to start.
Okay, so tell me about it.
All right, we decided on focusing on the beginning, and so this is a good place to start. So high school in writing. I went to DuSable High School in Chicago, Illinois.
What's DuSable like? How big is it? You know, how big
it's right there, 49th and State Street.
Okay.
State and Wabash. And at the time I went there, it was like, I think 2,000 people, 2,000. It was all a small village.
Okay.
All African-American high school, all Negro high school at the time.
Oh, okay. Contrary to my high school, Hackensack, New Jersey.
What was that like?
It was 500 people approximately, and not that many. It wasn't that diverse.
It wasn't that different.
Even for Hackensack. But yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Well,
What year? I was in the 60s.
Oh, you were a Miss Child.
Yes, 67. I graduated.
52?
52? Oh my goodness.
No. I was in high school and probably had, anyway, that's a long story. But 1952, I don't know what it would be like now, but in 1952, at that high school, at that period of time, it was like one of the richest places you could have been culturally. I mean, it was filled with very conscious African American teachers. Very interesting mix. They had a lot of Irish women there.
Really?
And they were almost as Afrocentric as
getting like 3 feet away.
I guess they had to be because they were so immersed in this thing. I think about people like Miss Cleary and Miss Gallagher and people like that who would be talking to us about, they didn't say black pride, they just simply reminded us that we had to be very good in order to succeed. We had to be twice as good as the others, they said.
Okay.
And then, of course, there were people like Dr. Margaret Burroughs.
Right. You talked about Dr.
Okay, I'm going to land on her and use her as the core of what the whole experience was for me, because that's what she was. This is the lady right here.
Life with Margaret Burroughs.
Life with Margaret
The
Burroughs.
official autobiography by Dr. Margaret T.G. Burroughs. My goodness. Can be, what was it? In-Time Publishing and Media Group. Okay, when was it published, by the way?
Her book?
Yeah, her book. I see she autographed it.
Okay.
Okay, and she gave it to us in 2006. Okay, and so at this point in her life...
She was about 90-some years old then.
Okay, it was, all right, it came out in 2003. Okay, but yes, that is definitely Dr. Margaret Burroughs.
And the point I'm making by showing you the book to show that teachers really, really matter. You've heard the story many times, but in brief, in 1952, they were cleaning out my cell
Figuratively speaking.
Literally.
Not literally.
Not literally, but figuratively.
Alright.
Because I was headed in that direction, and you know, I was slick, quick, and knew all the tricks.
Right.
You know, Dr. Burroughs had confiscated a note that I was writing, a letter that I was writing. I had gone into the letter writing business in high school.
An entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Okay.
For some reason, maybe it had something to do with Nat King Cole, and you could go from bebop to doo-wop. The musical scene was happening, but it was a very romantic time. If you wanted to hit on a young lady, for example, you might drop a note in her locker.
Okay, so you didn't text her.
What's that?
There are no cell phones.
This in the text, ladies and gentlemen. No,
there are no cell phones.
I'm talking about a primitive time. I'm talking about 1952. I don't think the televisions were much larger than this.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Friend of mine started me into it. He wanted to meet this young lady who was devastatingly pretty, and he didn't have the literary chops to hit on her.
Okay.
So you know, I'll write a note for you. And
so the first note was pro bono, I think.
That first one.
Right. Okay.
That first one.
Right, okay.
Yeah, the first one. And lo and behold, I looked up and there he is, strolling down the hall with the cutie pie that I had written the note for.
Okay.
And it clicked something in my head. I thought,
Cyrano.
Hey.
Cyrano.
Let me see here. Most of the guys I know can't write. So it started like that. I charged $1 for an ordinary. I charged $2 for a special. I charged $3 for an exotic.
Right.
And I charged $4 for an outrageous. Okay, I'm in Dr. Burroughs' room. He was an art teacher at the time. She's the lady who established the DuSable Museum of African American History, the first in the United States, and I feel really pissed sometimes that she's not more well recognized. Anyway, I was in her class. I had a couple of outrageous letters to write, and a special or two. And the art thing didn't mean anything. I do that on the side with my left hand while I'm. And I looked up, and the lady was leaning over my shoulder.
As teachers did back then. Yes.
They knew how to.
Had eyes everywhere.
That reason I say seasoned teacher. She plucked it out of, I believe this was an outrageous. Because the outrageous, you had to get outrageous. I see myself between your thighs every time I look between your eyes. Honey, baby, sweetheart.
Yes. Such sincerity is so rare.
It was outrageous. It was outrageous.
All right.
She took it to her desk, and when the bell rang for us to change classes, she, come here, I want to talk to you. She was a no-nonsense lady. You met her.
Yes.
I mean, she's a strict. Say, listen, what I want you to do is go to the Baptist Institute on 51st in South Parkway. I knew where it was. It's right down the street. A lady named Margaret Peterson has a writing class down Friday from something like 6 to 8. And if you don't go, I will fail you, and you'll have to repeat this class. And she blackmailed me and threatened me at the same time. So,
Gotcha.
you know, what else could you do?
Well, tell me, you know, even before this period, do you remember first learning to your ABCs in writing?
I started off listening to my father's people, Mississippi storytellers.
Okay, they were storytellers, but what about you learning your ABCs?
I don't know where I learned it. I picked up a paper one day and started reading it.
Okay, because you went to how many grammar schools?
I went to 17 by my actual count. At one point, I knew them chronologically by name, and then I began to get slipshod about it. So,
tell me, why did you go to 17?
My mother, well, my dad was in jail, and my mother was like, I think sometimes I think of her, I'm going to come back to Dr. Burroughs and class in a minute, but I always think of her As a matter of fact, I'm writing about her right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think I used to think of her as a wolf mother, a feral mother.
Mm-hmm.
She was, my mother was 16 when my father was 18 when I was born.
Mm-hmm.
I thought I was a premature child until I saw.
I'm sure your father did too.
He would have preferred me.
For that age, not to make it.
He was not a father. He was a daddy.
Yes, he was.
He was a daddy.
Well, tell me, what's the difference between a daddy and a father?
Well, according to his definition, fathers make you do what you should do.
Ah.
Daddies let you do whatever you want to do,
Ah.
with one caveat.
Right.
If you get caught, that's your little red warrior wagon.
Okay, but both require respect.
Yeah. Oh, black father slapped the shit out of you. You know, what did you say? Did you actually say, I said and then you said?
Yes.
No.
You dare to talk over me or while I'm talking?
No.
Okay, yeah. That was a different era.
No,
certainly.
a different, totally. I mean.
Okay, so you never went around stomping your feet and saying, I don't
Doing what?
Stomping your feet.
I had no stomp. I was docile.
You would have been stomped.
Listen, I went out to Washington Park one day. I know we're getting all
Right.
around it.
Well, it's moments in time.
I went out, moments in time. I went out to Washington Park one day in the wintertime and fell through the ice.
Yeah.
And the thing that saved me, clambering up on shallow pieces of ice until I got something that would hold my weight. What sustained me in that effort to save my life was the possibility of me getting my booty getting whipped.
Yeah.
Because I had killed myself.
Right. Okay.
I was more afraid of my mother than I was of death.
Right.
I mean, death, I could die anytime. But boy, she could, little woman, 5 feet tall. You know, when she started gaining that ghetto weight, she went from 112 to about 190.
Wow.
And, you know, had a pile driver fist.
I bet you do.
Early on, she spanked me 2 or 3 times. Okay, that was enough. What that meant was that I could get caught. Okay.
But there was one occasion where she spanked you harder than normal.
Well, she did, because I had disobeyed by running out in the street between 2 cars and running into the side door of a passing limousine.
Right.
And got myself knocked out. I don't know why I didn't get killed. And she allowed me to recover about 3 days. She asked me every day for 3 days, how you feeling? I said, I'm all right. I want to go back out and play. On the 3rd day, she said, what did I tell you not to do? And that was a razor strap came out from somewhere.
Right.
There must have been a barber shop nearby. Because she gave me a shaving. But going back to high school and Dr. Burroughs, who was in that same kind of mindset, you know, I have nothing but goodwill for you. I have nothing but I'm not going to take any crap.
Yeah.
You know, I love you. I love my black children and so forth. But you got to do what I say. First of all, you can't. You don't know enough to try to disobey me.
There are no options.
There are no options.
Right.
No options. I mean, sassing is not an option. Anyway, she sent me to this lady. She commended me on the note that I'd written. That was the first thing. You know, she didn't ask me what I was doing. She probably knew. But,
oh, sure. They had telephones then.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe they talked on the phone.
Okay. I'm not talking about Mrs. Peterson. I'm talking about Dr. Burroughs at high school.
Right.
I think she knew that I was in the love letter writing business.
Oh, okay.
But having caught me at it.
But you were also working in the newspaper, weren't you? Or writing or something in the newspaper every now and then. So and the teachers talked. The teachers communicated with each other.
He writes.
You know, right? He writes.
Yeah,
You know,
that's what the word had been passed.
From your German instructor to, all of them. Yeah, communicating. Yeah. They tattletaled on children.
Well, I marked the formal training at the very first beginning, to this class I went to at Mrs. Peterson's writing class. Mrs. Peterson was a very valiant, mousy looking blonde. I was a little bit surprised. Walked into this black organization, and there's this little mousy-looking white woman with the blonde hair and a buck teeth. She looked like
We saw her on TV. Was it last year or something like that? And anyway, and I took a picture of her when.
Maybe I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. I can't remember, but
Okay.
she made it plain. She was a white Dr. Burroughs.
Okay.
You know, you coming in here because Margaret talked to me about you, and no funny business.
There are no shortcuts. You did the work.
For as long as I could. The problem I had, I think there were 20 people in the class at the time. 15 white people.
But very sophisticated people.
Very sophisticated people who smoked cigarettes and had their own little cigarette holders.
That was the era when everybody had one.
In addition to that, after they finished class on 51st Street, they could walk half a block away to the Grand Hotel lounge and sit up there and drink gin and tonics. A wonderful thing to do in the summertime.
Right.
I couldn't do that. And the other thing is that I was just stressed. I was walking from 38th and Lake Park to 59th to 58th and 48th and 6th Street.
Okay.
The distance is quite far.
Okay.
Every day.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, I was in best condition I was ever been in my whole life.
Okay.
I jogged. Meanwhile, I'm going to walk from DuSable High School at 48th and State Street over to 51st and South Parkway every Friday, and it got to be too much.
Even in the winter.
Even in the summer.
Even in the summer.
But Dr. Burroughs gave me a pass. You know, she said, I didn't know you were walking to school. I thought. Well, I had an option. I could walk from school. I could walk from where we lived in the Alma Hotel, which is the story all itself. Which is not a hotel.
I remember.
At all. I could walk and steal. I'm sure there's a statute of limitations, but I could walk, save my money, and on the way to school, on the way from school, stop at the local markets and pick up a few things.
Yes. Appreciate that, definitely, because you were hungry. There were no school programs, was there?
Well, yeah.
There was a cafeteria, but there was not a school program where you had
school program.
Where you went to school and had breakfast.
School program and had breakfast. What a novel thought. What year did you?
I came in 1966.
That's right. That was 60. Okay, that's when they were trying to take care of people.
Right.
No,
we didn't have the school programs. We had a very good cafeteria.
I think they may have been, but I wasn't the type to eat in the school cafeteria. I mean, if they had a voucher program or something, I probably wouldn't have taken advantage because I would have been embarrassed and ashamed.
Oh.
We had our pride.
Okay. Poverty does have pride.
I'd rather steal. That was my fault. First of all, they didn't have any. They had spaghetti and with that Chef Boyardee sauce on it.
Right.
No, I'd rather steal.
Lunch.
And I did.
Naughty.
But when I became an official love letter
let's clarify, you stole lunches.
I stole.
Yeah, okay, you stole lunches. Yes. Moving right
I stole.
Okay.
If you had been in high school and you left your locker open, you know that the movie 20 Seconds and Gone, where the guy can hotwire your car and that was me. I could spot an open locker from half the corridor, get in it and get out of it in 30 seconds.
Yes.
Some fantastic young women went to our high school. They were incredible. They were lovely and sweet and so forth, and they left their purse open all the time.
Okay.
I couldn't believe it. It was like having been...
Well, coming up with your parents.
You got to do what you got to do.
Unfortunately. Product of your environment, I certainly...
Well, you couldn't blame it totally on the environment. I think there was sort of a molasses element in my DNA.
In your DNA, yes.
I think so. My daddy was a...
The Hawkins from Mississippi and...
Hey, moonshiners and bootleggers and stuff. My daddy is a great influence. I'm not going to harp on him. But he never had a job in all of his life. But of course, he never supported his children.
Right.
Or anything like that. And I forgive him for that because he gave me a character that I will always treasure. In an era where fathers used to slap sons around and beat them and stuff, he never touched me. He told me, get out, give me 20 squats, give me 50 push-ups.
Okay, yeah. that was the punishment.
Yeah, he encouraged me to do every wrong thing I wanted to do.
Well, see, that was quite contrary because I grew up with my grandparents primarily, and
your grandfather was a preacher.
Yes, my grandfather was a preacher, and he would raise his eyebrow up, and he'd wiggle his shoulders, and then he would go into the lecture. I'm so disappointed in him. I thought you would do better. You know, why did you do that? Okay, and I would want the ground to open up and swallow me. Okay, you know, and my grandmother. Well, both of them, they had hedges around the house in Hackensack, and we would have to go out and get a piece of hedge and bring it in to get whipped. Okay, and a couple of times, like my cousin Lamont, discipline is, my cousin Lamont got this weak, and so my grandfather put them both together. Okay, go give me another one. Let me make it a firm hedge. And I do remember my grandmother spanking me to the point where I was jumping up and down, and Mom was jumping up and down. We were like, we're not going to do it no more. We're not going to do it no more. We're not going to do it. And I think she was laughing. I remember looking distinctly at her, and I'm like, she's laughing. She's laughing at us. So, you know, we sought not to get the lecture, because first we get the lecture, and then we get the spanking. While you just got to go free will.
Yeah. Like I say, from the father's side, my mother, unbelievably, I mean, we lived all the time in cheap basements that were rat and rodent and roach infested. And she would insist on having me do things like scrub the concrete floor in the basement.
Right. But you know this move, right? You know what that was.
Oh, please, don't.
That, okay.
You're talking about the judo chop.
That judo chop in the back of the head. Right?
What? This? It would hit.
Right in the back of the head.
The last time I went to a doctor, I had a little fist in the back of my head.
Right.
And I'm asking him, doctor, tell me something about this little lump back here. That's not a lump, that's a part of your skull.
Right.
She had already figured it out years ago.
Yes.
She hit that place.
Right, okay, so it did not leave a mark externally. It left a mark internally.
That's right.
Okay, you do. Oh, don't chop my head off.
That's the one that touched you.
Yes, it is.
Anyway, after I had flunked out of Mrs. Peterson's class because I couldn't make it, and Dr. Burroughs excused me, I began to take writing seriously. You know, I thought, wow. After 3 or 4 sessions, when Mrs. Peterson says things like, well, you should do a character sketch for this character that you're talking about. Character sketch, what's that? Character profile.
Right.
Psychological, sociological, and physiological. Tell us something about the characters into motivations and blah, 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 blah. Up to that time, I was just simply repeating what I'd heard. My uncle Eddie, for example, he used to call it just telling lies. Let's tell lies. So what we are talking about is a grand tradition of cultural determinants, if you want to put it that way. The kind of thing that I think has offered people like us greater cultural motivation.
Oh, yes.
Because you came from something that you understood. My friend DeSapio, My friend Desapio once said to me, we were in the Army together, you know, one of the things that we had going for us is that in my neighborhood, my Italian neighborhood in New York, is that the mafia might offer us some stabilizing circumstances, because there were certain things you couldn't do that we considered disrespectful. The church, we were Catholics, the church offered some stabilization. In your community, it seems like people send their kids to the police, or you send them to schools that train them to hate themselves. And having gone to DuSable, I can't count the 17 grammar school because it was just, right now it's a blur. But when I got to DuSable, then you had black teachers like Dr. Burrows say, hey, listen, you're better than any of the people who are calling you bad.
And it's really interesting because, yes, the school had such an influence, especially for latchkey kids, you know, or single moms kids. You know, it wasn't a matter of, you know, you hear on the sitcoms, wait till your father gets home. Oh, yeah, right.
Harriet Nelson. What's it, Harriet and Nelson?
Yes,
No. You know, it's funny, we listened the other night to a remarkable program, and I thank you for zooming me in on it. A program about some dancers and 2 or 3 drummers who date from an era where they became interested in African dance. And the only thing I find fault with the program is that they didn't identify more closely which particular African dance styles they were involved in. It appears that the djembe drum was the most frequently used percussion, but I really wanted to know, were you dancing from Mali, Mauritania, Ghana, Togo, Cote d'Ivoire?
I think the man, Nada, he was saying that someone came from Africa.
Okay, Nada, y'all, I say to.
Okay, he said that someone had come from Africa and had said that, you know, what you're doing is fine for you, African Americans, okay, but it isn't necessarily from the motherland, the styles that you're doing. But it's I guess it's a potpourri of all of our African cultures, you know, brought out in expression and dance.
Yeah.
So
well,
that,
you know, we've done a remarkable thing here. We've created an African America. And I found out, we can get to it in a later episode, but I found out going to Ghana that in some ways our development has meant that we had to take the little threads of some things and make a whole cloth out of it.
Yes.
But that's another story. Coming back to
high school.
High school wasn't right.
Are you following us?
Oh, no. You got some fast minds.
I should hope
They're way on top of this.
You're on top of us, okay.
I know you are, Alfred.
Especially.
Oh, sorry. No, when I made the discovery that I could make some money writing these notes, I did it for 3 years until I'll make the long story short, and beat myself up again later. Until a friend of mine named Eddie asked me to write a note for him, a letter. It was usually 1 page, sometimes 2 pages. And he wanted it addressed to the mystery lady, the mysterious lady. I found out after I wrote the letter for him, and I saw him walking down the hall with this.
Your heartthrob.
This girl that I had fallen in love with.
So, on site.
On site.
Yes.
I hadn't even had a chance to write my letter yet,
Right, okay.
but I had written one for him, and there they were. it crushed me so badly, I stopped writing the love letters. I just couldn't do it anymore.
But I tell you, that was an interesting foundation from the high school, because apparently you've been very good. I would say extraordinary in your writing ability.
Oh, I would guarantee, hey, you get what this letter wants you to get, or I money back.
I do recall there's an event where you wrote a letter as an adult to a young lady, and she basically quit her job and showed up at your front door.
Well, actually, it was 2 letters.
Okay.
But
Listen,
I think
how many of you would quit your job and go for a guy from a letter?
if you got the right letter, you would do it.
I guess so.
But what it did more than anything else, early on, I was 15.
Okay.
I'm 83 now.
Yes.
And what it proved to me is that, hey, this stuff works. So I could tell you, bridging a huge span of times, I mean, I've written myself in and out of places that I would never have been in or out of. I don't want to get, when we get up to the Watts Writers Workshop,
Yeah.
that's going to be another story altogether. But from the high school point, that 4 years of writing the letters, I managed to get out of so much stuff that I would have to do normally in high school,
Right.
because I could write for the school newspaper, I could write for the school annual. I just wrote my way through. You know, I'm not a good mathematician to this very day, because one of the things I could do was just find some writing that needed to be done and
Right. Okay.
circle away from that.
Okay.
I can count my money.
But you know, that was definitely, I would say, a beautiful moment in time, because I'm sure there's
Oh, you're back on your theme now, moments in time.
moments in time. Yes, I'm sure, you know, that was a very basic moment in time, because I'm sure there are people out there that have letters from high school or a time when letter writing was very beneficial.
Whoa.
And very, you know, it wasn't a text in your phone, that if you get a new phone you might not find that text. And it was something, you know, that the women wrote letters and they put perfume on them.
Oh,
Or they
really?
put, yes, or they put lipsticks
That's
marks,
right,
yes,
that's
lip
right.
marks on it. And some people inserted hair. Just to
Yeah,
give an idea.
yeah.
Okay?
Little hairs.
Little bitty hairs. Okay?
Right straight off your...
Whatever's.
Yeah, well...
But there was, you know, something that made the letter memorable. Perfume that years later there's still a whiff left on the envelope.
You know, I'm not one to glorify the good old days, because they were not always as good
No,
sometimes.
they were not always good.
But I think there was a different kind of aesthetic, so that people really appreciated. You know, I knew a guy, for example, who couldn't write worth shit, but he knew how to make. He was a calligrapher.
Oh.
He wasn't a writer. I mean, you could.
Okay, right.
You had to tell him what to write, and if you asked him, say, George, I want you to write a letter for me, man, and I'll get back to you in a couple hours.
Right.
He'd be sitting there trying to figure out what to say.
Oh, wow.
But if you told him, or if you wrote it in your own clumsy writing, he would write. He was a beautiful writer. I think he may have been an artist or something. He didn't know it.
Well, I can appreciate that, because I remember learning my ABCs. My grandfather set me up and used at least 2 or 3 telephone books under me at the dining room table, and had me write.
You're going a long way, huh?
Yes. I'm not on telephone books anymore.
You were saying.
Okay, and so he would have me write the A and the B, and so
How old?
I was maybe 5 or 6.
Oh,
He
great.
started me, you know, with doing, you know, so that I had good handwriting. It's relatively still okay, but back then it was flowing, okay,
Yeah.
and you know, it was cursive. You know, you knew how to write cursive writing at that time, but you know, I gather people have gone away from it, and now it's just block letters.
You could, I would like to claim credit for being a pretty good handwriting analysis after having written 30-some books by hand.
Right. Yes, he has. By hand, all his books.
I'm falling away from it when I reached the point where I didn't have carpals, but I was developing it, so I put the carpals on and prevented it altogether. So I won't even sit down and write a full page without putting that on, because I can begin to feel all that kind of thing. But what I do remember,
thank goodness for medicine, medical technology, you know.
all the stuff that can save you. But what I can remember, referring to what you're talking about, is how you could read what someone had written between the lines.
Ah.
You know, I mean, just the curl of a word or the repetition of a word. It was
the height of the word.
Calligraphic poetry.
Ah, yeah.
It wouldn't have to say anything. It's like looking at, I like to look at Arabic writing.
Oh, yes. Okay,
you know, and the curls and swirls and things.
No, Cambodians are also, they're swirling the writing and everything.
You know, you have to learn how to really do things. Japanese.
Oh, yes. Japanese.
So we know, having gone straight from that to the text may have lost a lot. So.
Yeah. Well, they said that the brain works better when you are writing on paper than text. And a lot of people can write information much quicker with a paper and pen than they can on text and remember it. So in a sense, our technology is messing
you know
us
what?
up.
We're going to have a very interesting time going on and on with these things, because I'm willing to refer to the past in a very positive way, but in a negative way too, if that's what it merits. But one of the things we can look at as we compare eras and times, frames, and so forth and so on, a lot of good stuff has been lost.
Well, yes, you know, in fact, I kind of smile because I remember when I was working at the Department of Justice, I had people who would come to me, young folks would come and they say, oh, I wish I was born in the 60s and lived in the 60s and 40s and stuff like that. You know, I'm old school. And I smile at when you bring up memories of you're going to high school and so forth, and I say, wouldn't that be cool? But I know 1938, 39, 40, it was not that cool.
It was not that cool.
Okay.
It was not cool at all.
Especially if you were of a low economic.
Socio-low.
Social. Yes.
If you came from Chicago during the time period you're talking about, if you came from a place like Chicago, you were coming from a racial nightmare.
Okay.
I mean, the city was divided into principalities and sub-principalities. You could live, I was born on the west side of Chicago in an area called Jewtown.
Okay, now, so you're on the west side, so can you just briefly explain the different west side, east side?
Okay. The west side was on the west side. The south side.
No.
The south side was the south side was on the south side.
Tell me what's going on, the flavor.
Okay. The near west side was a polyglot kind of situation, because you had Jews living at Halsted and Maxwell Street. That was the center. I was born near Maxwell Street, near the center. The area had been formerly Jewish.
Okay.
The neighborhoods changed so fast. It would go from, there's a Pilsen district that was formerly Czechoslovakian that became Mexican.
Whoa.
I mean, things like that happened.
Okay, right.
White flight took place so that you had African Americans on the west side who lived in choice pieces of real estate that were worthless because they were there.
Interesting.
You could go a little to the south east or the southwest, I forget which one. And you had the Polish area, and Lithuanians and Estonians and Latvians. Eastern Europe was in full existence in Chicago.
Okay.
The Germans lived over here. And it was we lived on this side of Roosevelt Road. The Italians lived on the other side. You couldn't cross across Roosevelt Road after certain hours for fear that the Italians might stone you or something.
Wow.
Nobody nobody shot anybody.
Okay.
It was pre-gun.
Back in the day, yeah.
I mean, occasionally, but more often than not, if you went to the Italian side and waited for the bus, somebody might come out and throw some piss out of the car at you, something like that. But they didn't shoot. On the other hand, from time to time, some Italian bravura would try to ride his bicycle down Washburn, the street I lived on, and the older guys, I didn't do it, but the older guys would knock him off his bike, whip his ass with their belts, put him back on his bike and send him back. But nobody killed anybody.
Right.
The kind of ordinary violence we just saw in Atlanta.
Right.
I don't know, that was kind of different thing. I'm hard of hearing to this day because I got caught one evening, I think maybe I was 12, something like that, over in the Italian side, and some young guys, by my age, took me down to a basement. They were playing cops and robbers or something, and you know, they hit me in the head with the flat of a shovel.
So that's the beginning of your hearing problems as
That was the beginning.
got older.
Well, then the L trains, that helped.
And then the shooting range.
And then all of that.
Okay. Okay. So your ears have been assaulted.
I had a terrible head track. But some older Italian guys came down to the debate. Oh, yeah, what are you doing with this nigga? What are you doing? Get that little nigga out of here.
Right.
You know, guys, what are you, nuts or something?
Save their lives.
So I go back to my neighborhood with a hearing problem.
So in a sense, you've had your life stories, you know, your living.
Remember when in high school?
Yes, your living experiences were a great catalyst for your writing back then as well as now.
It's been so rich. But listen, I'm listening to you, and one of the things I find that fascinates me about a person like yourself is that you would be with me.
It's the yin and yang of it. Honest to God.
I keep thinking to myself, a preacher's daughter?
I know. Granddaughter. But
Granddaughter. Oh my God. Deep in the church. Own property. Had maids. You had maids, didn't you?
Well, mother did.
You had maids in your house.
When mother...
Speak truth to power.
When mother married along, I did have... There were maids, yeah, there were maids. And it was cute because the maids taught me very well how to clean. And that was a secret between the maid and me.
Well, you were innocent.
Not tell the mother. Okay, but yeah. Yeah. Those were interesting.
Yeah, innocence is worth 1,000 words.
But then you were born in 1937. Okay, and I was born in 1948.
The time frame doesn't make a whole lot of difference because we're both African Americans.
Right.
What made the difference was class. And the class in caste, we haven't talked about this, we should sometime, because the caste in class that I came from was looked down on by people from people of your caste in class.
Right.
It was almost as deep-seated and crazy as the color thing.
Oh yeah.
You know, the first time I got an invitation from an innocent girl, probably somebody like yourself, to come to a party at our house, a birthday party or something. And I showed up at the door, and I'm a long way from being black.
Right.
And they looked at me and said, well, what do you want? So Charlene said that, you know, that her mother came to those, you know. And I looked at these people, I realized, wow, they're mulattoes.
Wow.
I mean, they was fair and had greenish eyes and straight hair and all kind of stuff. the girl is looking around her mother saying, you know,
Yeah. Thought it would be
they
okay.
hadn't fully indoctrinated her yet, so she was guilty by default.
Yes, yeah.
But
Oh.
no, we go.
Yeah, that era of high yellow and straight hair, good hair, and all that.
Good so-called good hair.
So
good hair.
yes, okay. So that was prevalent.
You know, I
Yeah.
think about sometime when you get to things like good hair. What would have happened if Bob Marley had shown up with dread? I have the good hair.
You got that.
You
right.
don't got the good hair. I got the good hair.
Happy hair. Happy
Yeah.
hair. Got a spring in it.
Everything gonna be alright.
That's right. That's our young hero, the little boy that sings that song.
Well, look. Let me ask you this.
Yes. Well, it's gonna wrap this up.
Where do
soon.
we bring this to an end?
Well,
for this first, this is the second
This is the second
session.
Okay, this is the second session.
second moment in time.
Right, second moment in time. We're going to wrap this up and ask people to perhaps provide some questions you would like to know.
Don't ask too many, cause
Don't too many, because we're busy. Okay.
yeah.
And
No, you just asked for that.
Okay, but you know, again, this is.
We're trying to do something that we thought would be very interesting, and I'll put it this way. In a conversation we had, Zola says, how many times have you heard an African American couple of a certain age, middle-aged,
Middle age.
how often have you heard them speak on public media to each other like people are supposed to speak to each other?
Right.
And we came to the conclusion, never.
Okay. Well, at least I haven't yet. I haven't studied or tried to find any such events on the internet.
You may have been trying to find out. I found out they don't exist.
Well, yeah.
Name one. Name one.
I love Lucy.
Either social media. If it's social media, you're gonna have extravagant claims to whatever success they want to have. But I have yet to find an African American couple at a certain age level. You find them in commercials. They just smile at each other to sell some Epsom salts or something.
Right.
But no.
Yeah.
There's no delving into, well, hey, what was like for you before we met, before we knew each other? What was your life like? What was your life like? You're a writer and you've been a social worker and not a social worker, but what was your job?
Legal secretary.
Legal secretary.
Yes.
No, family law. Family law. Yeah.
Right, family law.
Okay, coming from that, in addition to your own quite enormous experience with all kinds of people and your familiar way of turning enemies into friends.
Try. Life is too short.
I don't think so. I hate
that's the yin and yang
I hate
thing.
well.
Yeah, that's the yin and yang
I carry
thing.
grudges.
But then, what is it?
You get a problem.
What is it? Life
You
is
get a
too
problem.
short.
Yeah, I know.
Okay? That you don't have enough time for happiness. So therefore you have no time for sadness.
Well, if you mess with me, I think you shouldn't have any happiness. I would like to see curses passed out to people who need them.
Odie Hawkins. Stop.
I'm getting to her, Alfred. I'm getting to her. I'm getting to her. No, but on the serious level,
Yeah.
this was the catalyst for us offering you
Moment in Time with Odie and Zola. Oz. Like on the
We'll be
road
back.
Oz.
We'll be back next Monday. Is that right?
Yes, next Monday we will see you.
Okay.
I look forward. We look forward. And we have it.
Yes. We'll explain it later. Which gives birth to itness.
Itness. All right then. Thank you folks for joining in and hope you enjoyed this moment in time with Odie and Zola. Bye.